When did your gut feeling of something's not right here save you? There's been a few times where I hadn't listened to my gut, but one sticks out where I did. I used to live in a smaller Minnesotan town down near some train tracks and a bike or running path that extends out of town into the woods. One evening I'm sitting outside on my porch drinking a couple of beers with my buddy. Two dudes walk up on us kind of out of nowhere and immediately something seemed off with them. It's a college town and drunk people come up onto your porch a lot or randomly just say hello on their way to or from the bars downtown. But these dudes had a bad-ass vibe to them. I had a little black Louisville Slugger lying next to me on the porch, so I grabbed and just held it across my lap. One dude asked us, "You guys got an extra stink?" Buddy says nope. The other guy comes up real close, almost onto the porch, and says, "Did you see my face?" I just kept looking forward but not directly at him and just said, "Nah man, we didn't see anything." He said something like, "Good, lil punk ass," and they both walked away. 2 nights later, I'm sitting in my living room with the same buddy and the local news is on. 2 guys arrested for robbing and stabbing a man a couple nights back on the trail down by the train tracks next to where I live. My buddy had looked at their faces coming up and I had seen the dude clear as day that asked for the spank. It was those same fucking guys. I woke up at 3 a.m. once sitting upright in bed. I felt on alert and my heart raced when I saw that my cat was on alert too, wide awake by my feet with his ears perked up. But I didn't see or hear anything weird. Something didn't feel right and I couldn't relax. So I got up and went to the kitchen, turned on some lights and ate food even though I wasn't that hungry. Eventually went back to bed. We discovered the next morning that someone had stopped while in the process of using some kind of tool to silently cut a big hole in the glass window in the living room. They were trying to break in, right next to the bedroom. I think the lights I turned on scared them away. My cat was sitting and staring at our front door around 11 p.m. when I was in high school. My father went right to the front door and looked out the top window and saw my ex-boyfriend's face like 5 inches from the window. Guy had been stalking me for a while. My dad threatened to blow his head off. Never saw him again. My dad didn't own a cat. Spaz Cat lived to be 21. He was one crazy semi-feral cat, but he was awesome. Do you know that I give you money for uploading my videos to TikTok, and the one who gains the most views in a month gets an extra $1,000? More details on my Discord server, link in the comments. At age 5, I was almost abducted by strangers at the park who had a bunch of toys on a blanket and tried to lure me into their motor home. I looked back to my dad, who was talking to his friend maybe 100 yards away. I got a tummy ache when one of them tried to coax me by reaching for my arm to lead me away, and I screamed and ran like hell back to my dad. Years later, I found out those same people had acted other kids who weren't so lucky. Never ignored a gut feeling since. Was riding my motorcycle with a friend on the back. We were going down a country road behind a truck hauling a bunch of old car tires when all of a sudden I decided we shouldn't be there, so I slowed way down to let the truck go ahead of us. Just as I did, one of the tires fell off the truck and landed right where we would have been. Well, I was walking home. Wasn't late and I'm from a pretty safe area, but it was that time of year when it starts to get dark really early, so felt kind of ominous. Anyway, I passed this guy in a red sweater and red tracksuit bottoms, and he looks at me funny. Maybe he's high, maybe he's drunk. Either way, something not quite right about him. I keep going. Look behind me, he's still there. Cross the road. He crosses with me. As soon as I turn a corner, I sprint to my apartment complex and run into the coded gate and wait. He rocks up a minute later and stares at me through the gate. He just stares at me for a good 10 or so seconds, then runs back the way he came. Shivers. I'm a firefighter. We got called out to a tree fire started by fallen power lines. We pull up in the truck and I'm trusting that my driver and crew leader are doing their job and have good situational awareness. We get out of the truck and we park next to a set of power lines, not fallen. It's a very windy night and I can see the lines swinging, so I voice my concerns to my crew leader, who says it'll be fine. We get out, hose out, risk of the tree fire catching onto a house outweighing potential risk of arcing, plus the line disconnected when it fell, and I'm on the branch ready to start putting it out with 2 others near me when I get a chill. I look up, see the line swinging violently, and yell, "Everyone fucking move." As the 3 of us sprint and dive out of the way, we hear a thwip and crack, and sure enough, the line we were under came loose and stayed connected to the power pole. If I hadn't got that chill, chances are we would have had 3 fried fireys. Damn, you would have become a firefighter. Had a friend who said we should go to this party he was invited to by a classmate of his. We ended driving out to it. We noticed the neighborhood was not too pleasant and sketchy. We saw the house had some lights on in backyard, but kind of quiet for a party. I decided that we should not go since something felt really off. Friend ended finding the classmate that invited him got robbed and threatened when he went to party. It ended up being a fake party. How is this a good plan? Let's invite people to our house to rob them. Nobody will ever catch us. Some dude get off the bus at the same stop as me. It's about 8 p.m. and October, so it's quite dark out already. He had spoken to me on the bus, one line about nice weather. Anyway, he gets off the bus after me. I cross the road and make a mental note of him walking the opposite way to me. I make sure to watch him walking away. Something in my gut says not to trust him. To get to my house, I have to walk up a hill with a path alongside a high stone wall. It is secluded. Usually I listen to music as I walk. I decide not to this time. I'm about halfway up when I get this awful feeling. I take out my phone, dial my mother's number, and as I do, I hear fast steps of someone running up behind me. I know it's the guy before I turn around, and as I do, he is literally running full speed towards me. I look him dead in the eyes, ready to fight for my life. As I do this, my mother answers her phone and I say, "Hi, Mom." He slows right down to a light jog and says evening as he jogs past me. I ask my mom to stay on the line. Her buff comes out to meet me at the top of the hill. The guy is nowhere to be seen. He was definitely running up behind me to strike me, and by turning to face him, I'm certain it threw him off. Went to a college party, and one of the guys made me feel very uncomfortable. He didn't ever do anything to me, but something seemed off. I kept dumping my shots because getting smashed seemed like a bad idea. I ended up taking a friend and leaving while he told us that we were being lame by not having more of the Grey Goose. He ridiculed another girl at the party that night. I had a similar experience in college. I went to a frat party at another school and just got a really bad vibe. The guys had a separate bowl of punch for girls, which wasn't that unusual in itself, although maybe it should be, and I noticed some of the girls seemed off or way too drunk, so I helped them get out of there, warned the other girls at the party, and called campus security on the frat. It turned out that a bunch of girls were roofied at the party and had to be hospitalized. It all got swept under the rug, and there were no penalties for the fraternity as far as I know. Worked as a shot girl at a pub. One night I rejected someone who attempted to get my number. Not unusual, and he didn't seem that bothered. The whole exchange wasn't strange to me. In the early hours after the bar closed, I went to leave through the back door into the car park like usual when I saw the sensor light outside was on. Someone was stood just outside the door. I felt uneasy, so went out the front and asked one of the bouncers to walk me round the back to my car. As we rounded the corner, we spotted this guy lurking outside the door holding his belt like a makeshift garrote. When he saw us, he started screaming that I was a f***ing bitch and I should dick. He scampered off into the road and never came back. I am now slightly less excited for my shift as Scat Girl tonight. Not me, but my best friend was driving to California from Arizona with her 2-year-old for work about 5 months ago, and she stopped at a gas station and just got a weird feeling. She normally doesn't lock her car when she pumps gas, but she decided to do it. During that process, a woman came up to her and started talking all nice and whatnot. She got an uneasy feeling about it and heard a noise like someone trying to open a door. She turned around and saw the woman's husband trying to get into her car to steal her baby. She told him to get the f*** away from her car, and the man tried to play it off. She told them to f*** off and got in her car to leave. The couple got in their vehicle and followed her, tried to swerve her off the road and brake check her on the highway for a few miles. She was smart enough to call the cops. This was in Prim, Nevada, and they caught up to her and ended up arresting the couple. They had gotten multiple reports the day of issues like that. A guy dyed blue came into the motel lobby at 1 a.m. In and of itself, not terribly unusual. Clubs get out. You see folks with body paint, foam, etc., but he just seemed off. When he came up to the counter, I took a step back, which is why his Bowie knife hit my tie and not my neck. Slammed the fire door down, called the cops. Wasn't difficult for them to find a bright blue guy who got naked for some reason after I slammed the door, running around in the snow at 1 a.m. Posted this before, took my 2 babies to an in-home daycare run by a lovely woman. About 9 days in, the woman's teenage son was home when I picked up my kids. He gave me a super creepy vibe. Pulled the kids from the daycare and placed them elsewhere. Maybe 10 years later, that kid murdered 2 people, then killed his mom. Someone came into my work that gave me the I'm in danger feeling. I work in a place where 60% of my customers are children, and I naturally get very protective of them. But you can't call the police because someone is creeping you out. He kept getting close to children but not doing anything or even making them uncomfortable, so there still wasn't anything I could do. He leaves and I shrug it off. Another customer soon comes in and gives me the same feeling, so I'm thinking I'm just anxious today. He's talking about Donkey Kong and stuff, casual conversation. Then he says I'm best friends with Martin Bryant, the spree killer from the 1996 Port Arthur massacre, who is in solitary confinement and can't even interact with whoever has to throw his food at him, so I'm getting a bit nervous now. Then the first creepy guy comes in, and the one I was talking to says, I know him, we went to prison together. So immediately I start having a panic attack and have to end the conversation as quick as possible so I can contact the manager to say I need someone else to come into the store. I was there alone, and they immediately called the police. Turns out they were both registered sex offenders. Neither were allowed anywhere near my work because it's too close to the CBD, and they're legally now allowed near anywhere that could have children there. I actually recently went to court for this, waited hours to go in, and he pleaded guilty at the very last second. Bad. He was hoping you wouldn't show and he'd be released for lack of witnesses. When I was in middle school and around 14 years old, I was returning home. I lived like 5 minutes away from said school and I noticed there was a man following me. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking at his phone, and he wore a cap so I wasn't able to see his face fully. Anyways, he gave off this weird vibe. I reached my apartment building and the guy was still behind me. I know mostly everyone who lives in my neighborhood and I couldn't recall him. Last moment, I decided I wasn't going to go inside the hallway. I turned around and went to a store where I waited for my mom to come. A few weeks after, there was some news about an 11-year-old girl from my school who was in the building right behind mine 2 days after the incident. The guy they caught looked a lot like the guy who had followed me, and given the time frame and the proximity, there's a high chance that it was him. I am a petite woman and was 19 at the time. Had a late shift that ended at 10 p.m. Hit the grocery before my walk home, about 10 blocks. I got arms full of groceries and noticed a car drive past me in the opposite direction. Heard it pull a U-turn behind me and park. I tell myself, probably just getting home from work too, but then I hear footsteps behind me. I turn around and it's a man in his 30s, I guess. He doesn't say anything, but stops walking when I stopped walking. I keep walking, a bit faster now, and I can hear him speed up too. I turn around again and say, hey man, what's up? He says nothing. I turn around and keep walking, almost at a mini jog pace, and I hear him speed up too. I was about 4 blocks away from home. The adrenaline kicked in, I dropped my bags and booked it. Made it home, told my boyfriend what was happening. As he goes outside to find the guy, dude drives by in his car, right past my house. We call the cops, give them a description, and the operator tells us they had other calls about the same guy. Really hoping he never actually caught someone. Really hoping his creepy ass wound up in jail. Really happy I listened to my gut. I was in Turkey for vacation when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and I made friends with some other tourists, but also some locals, all around the age range of 8 to 16. These 2 local guys were about 16, and at one point during the late afternoon they asked if I wanted to go with them to go kart outside of the hotel area, and I agreed. Approximately 30 seconds of walking along with them, I got the most chilling feeling I've ever had in my life. All the hairs on my skin rose up and I had this super uneasy feeling deep in my gut. It actually felt like some supernatural force was beckoning me to dip. I turned on my heels and sprinted so fast to get back to the hotel. I didn't even look back. When I returned, my mother asked where I had been. I told her I was taking a rough skid. Oddly enough, I was quite fond of those guys before this happened. But thinking about this in retrospect, why would 2 local 16-year-olds have any genuine interest in go-karting with a young 8-year-old tourist? I feel like I may have dodged a bullet. We may never know. If you haven't watched my other videos, then be sure to watch this one. I bet it will amaze you. Or you can watch all our videos in a row in this playlist. Write your stories in the comments, subscribe, turn on the bell, and go to our Discord. There we give you money for uploading our videos to TikTok. You uploaded, you gained views, you got money. Link in the comments.